Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show. This is our once-a-week program where the Doc Owen Show dedicates all resources to sanctuary cities and its kissing cousin, immigration and illegal immigration. We try to expose some facts, and actually the whole idea represented by the name is to provide an alternative to what you think of as a sanctuary city. Our SAINT is an acronym for Sanctuary Assembled in Nature's Tradition, and we will try to give you a better understanding of that a little bit later in the program, as we do every one. We are all over the social media as Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW, and we even have a Facebook page dedicated to Saint Cities, SAINTCITIES. We would love it if you'd go out there and like us and follow us and get involved. That's the best place to do it. We have a blog that we're growing called DocOwenShow.com, spelled the same way. About to open a store out there where you can buy some really cool patriotic merchandise and support some of our friends and neighbors out there, small, independent, entrepreneurial type businesses. And the best way to get caught up and or listen to the show is probably one of our apps. It's a free app on the iPhone or the Android devices. You can go down and download it for absolutely zero. And if you follow us on Twitter at Doc Owen Show, you'll get a tweet that says we're live, and you can just flip onto the app right there on your phone and listen up, as well as it has all of our library of historical shows, et cetera, et cetera. I am joined in the studio this evening by Miss Ima Surefire. Miss Surefire, how are you?
Good. Howdy, folks. How y'all doing?
We start our show in a very traditional manner. I'm going to give us a inspirational quote that is followed by absolutely the best rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance that we could find. And then we have a friend of ours that was the lead singer for a group called Madison Rising. They have a great song. We get into that and then finish that kind of selection of sound bites with a fellow by the name of John Wayne, the Duke, and a poem that he wrote and articulated in the mid-50s, I think, something like that, called The Hyphen. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from InspirationalDaily.com. I have been quoting from another site, but that required more thought and time, and since I'm in the Pile Higher and Deeper program now, I have less time.
There you go.
So tonight's quote comes from Francois Rabelais, I believe. He was a French writer and considered an eminent physician in his time. And his quote is, "Gestures in love are incomparably more attractive, effective, and valuable than words."
There you go. I'm a firm believer. Absolutely correct.
I believe too.
The next gentleman that you are about to hear, in his time, was actually known as a comedian. And that's why, for those of you not familiar with Mr. Red Skelton, you may, misinterpret or misunderstand some of the laughter that goes on at the beginning of this clip. But Mr. Skelton, on one of his shows, did a fabulous job of explaining and articulating the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Here's Mr. Skelton.
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer, I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. He says, he says, "I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United, that means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life, without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
TV on to wake up and clear my head. I catch the news in time to view another stirring of the pot. Talks of inequality and what people need, forgetting what they got. But in these times of opposition, the prejudice runs deep. Dividing us by heritage is all they ever preach. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. But people cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. extra language. It was just another way to pledge allegiance to the flag. God bless the USA. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. And people cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came.
You need to be aware that that song is circa 2014, 2013 or 2014, something like that. And the poem that you are about to hear is circa 1954. So realize, I mean, that's like 50 years, no, 60 years, that this hyphen situation has been a challenge and recognized even by some of the better artists in the country, trying to bring it to our attention. I will continue to try to bring it to your attention, and I think you should spread the word to bring it to the attention of others. Let's let Mr. John Wayne take it away. Duke.
The hyphen, Webster's dictionary defines, is a symbol used to divide a compound word or a single word. So it seems to me that when a man calls himself an Afro-American, a Mexican-American, Italian-American, an Irish-American, Jewish-American, what he's saying is, I'm a divided American. Well, we all came from other places, different creeds, different races, to form a nation, to become as one. Yet look at the harm a line has done. A simple little line, and yet as divisive as a line can get. A crooked cross the Nazis flew, and the Russian hammer and sickle, too. Time bombs in the lives of man. But none of these could ever fan the flames of hatred faster than the hyphen. The Russian hammer built a wall that locks men's hearts from freedom's call. Crooked cross flew overhead above 20 million tragic dead. Among them, men from this great nation who died for freedom's preservation. A hyphen is a line that's small. It can be a bridge or be a wall. A bridge can save you lots of time. A wall you always have to climb. The road to liberty lies true. The hyphen's use is up to you. Used as a bridge, it can span all the differences of man. Being free in mind and soul should be our most important goal. If you use the hyphen as a wall, you'll make your life mean and small. An American is a special breed whose people came to her in need. They came to her that they might find a world where they'd have peace of mind, where men are equal, and something more, stand taller than they stood before. So you be wise in your decision, and that little line won't cause division. Let's join hands with one another, for in this land each man's your brother. United we stand, divided we fall. We're Americans, and that says it all.
So after those two, did you notice at the beginning of John Wayne's poem, his first reference to a divided American? This will show you the date, the dating. He referred to Afro-Americans. For those of you not familiar, in current terminology, I think they're called Black Americans. I think they changed their moniker, if you will.
Yeah.
But they went from Afro to African to Black.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Anyway. So, having heard all of that, let me explain to you, for first-time listeners, and maybe even some of our regular listeners that just have not committed it to memory for one reason or another, exactly what a saint city is. Saint is an acronym. It stands for Sanctuary Assembled in Nature's Tradition. And it's an alternative. It is a sanctuary for Christians that are being persecuted on a worldwide basis, such as the protection to display a nativity scene at Christmas, or the Ten Commandments wherever, or where people engage openly in prayer and read the Bible without fear of retaliation. A saint city is a sanctuary for our military personnel, both active and veteran. A saint city is a sanctuary for family values that are constantly being eroded in favor of a vocal minority. A saint city is a sanctuary free from the constant discord created by being hyphenated Americans. We are not Hispanic Americans, white, black, or Asian Americans, or any other dash Americans. We are simply Americans, as you just heard in the song and in the poetry. A saint city is a sanctuary for patriots that are proud of our unique American heritage. And finally, a saint city is a sanctuary for the sanctity of life from conception to a natural end. The sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition is a reference to God's order. And if you heard that in that description, that's exactly what it was. Not something imposed by man, not a man-made law, but a natural tradition or a natural order. So last week we talked about the fact since the Trump victory, sanctuary cities are back in the news. Sorry, sanctuary cities were never out of the news, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I've been whining about it for years, and just decided to dedicate a show to it. In Texas, our House of Representatives and Senate, our state government meets every other year. They only convene for a short period of time every couple of years, and we have a session coming up in 2017, a little bit after the first of the year. It kicks off. Well, Texas Governor Greg Abbott took to Twitter this past Sunday night to announce his plan to ban sanctuary cities in the Lone Star State. He also revealed his administration has issued an executive order cutting off funding to such cities. The Republican governor was actually responding to a Twitter user's question asking him if he could do anything about the city of Austin, Texas, pledging to remain a sanctuary city for illegal immigrants. During his first television interview since becoming the president-elect, Trump promised on 60 Minutes to deport any illegal immigrant who was a member of a gang or had a criminal record. Democratic mayors and governors across the country, who, by the way, are dwindling in number, have, in return, pledged to ignore federal law and will continue to harbor illegal immigrants. Among the most notable are New York City, Bill de Blasio, and Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. But there are others, and they're all chiming in. So, similar to Governor Abbott promising to block money to sanctuary cities in Texas, President-elect Trump has pledged to cut off federal funding to sanctuary cities across the country. He has one of his first appointments to his cabinet is a senator by the name of Jeff Sessions, who has been appointed to the role of Attorney General, which, as you know, probably was previously held originally in the Obama administration by Eric Holder, think Fast and Furious and other things, and is currently held by, I can't think of her name. I can see her face, but I can't think of her name.
Loretta Lynch.
Lynch, yeah.
Loretta Lynch.
Yeah, right. I always think of the coal miner's daughter. So, but they have done a less than admirable job of enforcing the law as it is written by the Constitution. They've done a good job of playing to the administration's desires, not necessarily the law, which what they're hired to do. Well, Jeff Sessions is forecasted to be a little bit different and use and enforce the Constitution as intended. And here's an article that says he could take punitive actions against so-called sanctuary cities as soon as he takes office. It talks about him having a rough confirmation coming up, but it's still a Republican-run Senate. So it could be tough, but I think he'll make it through. Generally speaking, for your information, a sanctuary city is a jurisdiction that does not comply with federal detainer requests, or immigration holds, as they are called. Officials in these jurisdictions contend detainer requests are unconstitutional. Some sanctuary cities order local law enforcement to not make inquiries concerning an individual's immigration status and provide identification cards for procuring government services. The Department of Justice's Inspector General issued a memorandum in August that advised these practices violate federal law. In other words, what these cities are doing violates federal law according to the DOJ's own Inspector General, which is government speak for auditor. So the IG finding empowers the Attorney General to strip sanctuary cities of certain federal grants. That's a drastic step that carries its own political risk, etc. But Sessions and Trump may well be willing to take that political risk. So they've been supported by their own Inspector General that they can do this. However, I want to give you just a moment of sobriety. You know, you may or may not know that what I talk about is rarely. Sometimes it's off the top of my head and out of my heart, but generally, I try to stick to providing information that I've done research on and give you both sides of the story. So here's an article that the title of it is Federalism, the Constitution, and Sanctuary Cities. So it starts out with talking about the Statue of Liberty seen from Circle Line Ferry in Manhattan is one of the sanctuary cities that are committed to refusing cooperation with Trump's plans for mass deportation, is New York City. Know this. Under the Constitution, state and local governments have every right to refuse to help enforce federal law. In cases like Prince v. United States in 97 and New York v. United States in 92, the Supreme Court has ruled that the 10th Amendment forbids federal commandeering. Excuse me a minute.
Bless you.
Just can't help it sometimes. Thank you. That the Supreme Court, the 10th Amendment forbids federal commandeering of state governments to help enforce federal law. Okay? Trump has said that he intends to break the resistance of sanctuary cities by cutting off their federal funding. So you can't push it down their throats. They are within their rights to refuse. But you can use the power of the purse.
That's right.
Okay. Few, if any, federal grants to state and local governments are conditioned in cooperation with federal deportation efforts. So, in order to legally withhold funds, you can only withhold the funds that were specifically provided for immigration services. Mm-hmm. You follow me? Mm-hmm. It's got to be stated in the grant, here's what you're going to use it for. Mm-hmm. And if it's used for something other than that, we're going to pull it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the looming fight over sanctuary cities is an example of how federalism and constitutional limitations on federal power can sometimes protect vulnerable minorities. I thought it was an interesting article in that it's not quite as one-sided as as easy to enforce as the politicians might have you believe. Okay? Because they would run into the Constitution. Election exit polls suggest that mass deportation is not a popular policy, with 70% of the public believing that undocumented migrants working in the U.S. should be offered permanent residency, and only 25% indicating they should be deported. It's interesting. Here's a final update that's in here. It is worth noting that if Congress were to pass a law stripping sanctuary cities of all their federal funding unless they help facilitate federal deportation efforts, it would be unconstitutional under the Supreme Court's decision striking down the Obamacare Medicaid expansion in NIFB v. Sebelius 2012, which forbids funding conditions so coercive that they amount to a gun to the head of a state or local government. So, in other words, Trump and company are going to have a real uphill fight doing what they want to do from either a coercion, simply forcing state and local governments to do it, or trying to do it through federal funding. Mm-hmm. Which brings me back to a little thing called saint cities. The way you overcome these things, folks, it's like a child. If a child has a toy that you don't want that child to have, or it's dangerous for the child to have, or let's not call it dangerous. Let's just say it's annoying.
Like a set of drums.
Yeah. Then what's the first thing that you're taught to do?
Take it away.
Well?
You mean the child or the parent?
What's the first thing that the parent is taught to do? Or you finally figure out the best thing to do. Let's put it that way. You're not taught to do it, but you figure out the best thing to do. Give the child something else to play with. All right? Saint cities is the alternative to the current vernacular of sanctuary cities. It's a sanctuary assembled for the right reasons. For the same reason that Donald Trump got elected to drain the swamp, etc., Saint Cities is out there as an alternative. Find us on Facebook. Read up about it. Sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition. Okay. And here, so let me give you some more articles. Let me give you some more information, ammunition. That was kind of a downer to let you know that that the politicians can't exactly do exactly what they're telling you they're going to do. They can't come straight forward and demand that state and local governments cooperate. But Greg Abbott can do that. You follow me? Each and every state governor can do that. They can withhold that. That's within their purview. The difference is the federal government can't do it, and yet the federal government is tasked with protecting our borders. So it's kind of strange, and it's a gap that's been created by the way we run this republic, and as I don't want to call them criminals or crooks but people who don't necessarily have others' best interest at heart and focus on their own best interest have figured out a way to shoot the gap of this federal versus state and local government issue.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sanctuary cities versus national security. This is something that I think you need to take to heart, and if you are ever lucky enough to be drawn into a discussion of sanctuary cities with someone who is in support of them, it will be some good ammunition for you. The lunacy of the immigration executive orders and other actions of the Obama administration to block the enforcement of our immigration laws and immigration anarchy will be brought to a screeching halt on the day that Donald Trump replaces Mr. Obama in the Oval Office, is how this article starts out. And then it talks about the mayors and the governors that are pushing back on it, et cetera, et cetera. However, what you need to think about is that sanctuary cities do not provide sanctuary for the residents of those cities, who all too often fall victim to the crimes committed by those criminal aliens. In other words, where is a sanctuary city for law-abiding citizens? The problem is that we have terrorists are most likely to set up shop in sanctuary cities to evade detection or arrest. So we can use the security provided by such leaders as Chicago's Emanuel and New York's de Blasio as someplace to live, as a staging area for attacks they can carry out in other cities. In other words, sanctuary cities are not a danger just to the citizens of the cities where they live. They're a danger to the entire United States. And the lack of enforcement of immigration is that's what Trump's been saying too, is a danger to the entire United States. Yes, as we let these people in, and we not only that, but we tell them where to go live, so that they won't be interrupted or bothered. Mm. The other thing that the proponents of sanctuary cities like to talk about is that if you don't like sanctuary cities, you're a racist, right? Mm. End of discussion. Well, a quick review of a section of the Immigration and Nationality Act, and you need to be aware of this if you're going to get in this discussion with these folks. It's going to be tough because they don't want to hear facts. But here's another fact. The Immigration and Nationality Act, Title 8, United States Code, Section 1182. Go back and listen to the podcast or write it down real quick. Title 8, Section 1182, quickly dispels the bogus claim that equates the enforcement of our immigration laws with racism. Here's what it says. Enumerates the categories of aliens who are to be excluded. Among those classes of aliens who are to be prevented from entering the United States are aliens who suffer from dangerous communicable diseases or extreme mental illness. In addition, convicted felons, human rights violators, war criminals, terrorists, and spies are to be excluded, as well as aliens who would seek unlawful employment, thus displacing American workers and driving down the wages of American workers who are similarly employed, and aliens who would likely become public charges. Make absolutely no distinction in any way, shape, or form as to the race, religion, or ethnicity of any alien. So those charges of who to keep out are basically lumped into Trumpese as bad guys. He doesn't go into the detail, but these are the bad guys. Hadn't have anything to do with their race, religion, or ethnicity.
That's right. Yeah.
And that, that's something that really needs to be understood. It's kind of like, when they whine about undocumented workers, You know, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get out of using the word illegal because that traps them into a problem.
Right.
Well,
It's illegal, period, no matter how you sugarcoat it.
That's right. Undocumented are illegal.
Yes.
Right. So, this is written by a former INS agent. In reality, the targeting that we did at the INS involved law violators irrespective of race, religion, or ethnicity, period. So they were targeting criminals. What did I just tell you? Section 8? No. The section was 1182. Title 8, Section 1182 of the Immigration Code.
That's right.
One of the guys that pushed back on, that has become somewhat of a spokesperson in the pushback for sanctuary cities against Trump, is the mayor of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And one of his pushbacks was that there are no statistics or information that support the growth of crime in sanctuary cities.
Wow, he must be missing some information.
Well,
somewhere,
there are numerous. Interesting, you bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
There are numerous scholarly studies that do not support crime increases based on illegal immigrants. Okay.
They need to spend probably like a few weeks at the Texas border and see what happens there.
Well, my note to myself and to our listeners is there are crimes against the quality of life. So what all of the academics tend to track is violent crime. They consistently use the term violent crime. All right? So that says rape, murder, manslaughter,
Assault,
violent crime. There's an awful lot of crime that goes on that is nonviolent.
That's true.
All right? That they don't measure. They don't look at that. That's what I call quality of life. All right? Financial crime, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now it seems that before we move on, and since we're kind of going to get away a little bit from, we'll do this last one, and then I've got a favorite little, like 1 minute sort of a moment of brevity about, it's actually an apology from a Trump supporter to his friends who did not support Trump that came out right after the election. And I continue to play it because I think it's a good thing to do. But before we go there, I got this one last thing to say about Trump, and then we'll go. Hundreds of churches across the U.S. are preparing to hide illegal immigrants if Donald Trump goes ahead with his campaign promise to deport them. They're got 400 churches. Excuse me, something in the air. Church World Service, a humanitarian charity, estimates 400 churches around the U.S. will hide those at risk from deportation. The bishops of Virginia told Latino voters, "We stand with you not only symbolically, but we will be there to stand with you literally if and when the time comes." So, the battle lines are being drawn. It's going to be extremely challenging.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's listen to this apology from one of our friends out on the West Coast. Go ahead.
Give my remarks to all of the Trump haters, all of the Hillary Clinton supporters, all of the people that said that my Trump was going to lose. So I say to you this morning, the day after the election,
YouTube is an absolutely wonderful thing. I can't remember whether I found that on YouTube, but I think I was directed to it by one of my Twitter followers from the Doc Owen Show. I love it. Here's an article that talks about how long is that Trump haircut clip that we've got? About 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes.
That's correct.
I want to get that in, so let's do that now, and then we'll jump to we'll chat our way out the rest of the show. But I want to make sure we get that in.
You want me to
Yeah.
hit it?
Yeah. So we've got. I think this is off of Fox News, but it talks about the funding issue, and it's talking about a major. They call it a haircut, a $650 billion haircut that he could impose in terms of sanctuary cities. Give it a listen. Thanks.
A rising number of left-wing mayors in sanctuary cities across the country pledging to fight both the law and the president-elect. 11 cities now, from Los Angeles to New York, vowing not to cooperate with the Trump administration on deportation orders for illegal immigrants, preserving their sanctuary status. There are more than 200 of these sanctuary cities and jurisdictions all across the country. All told, about 400 jurisdictions that have policies, police department orders, or non-binding resolutions of some kind that limit local officials from cooperation with federal immigration law enforcement, ignoring federal law. Now, Trump has threatened to cut off federal aid to these sanctuary cities, and he has a lot of leverage to do so. Those sanctuary cities receive some $650 billion from the federal government. That's what they call leverage. Joining me now, the co-host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle, attorney and absolutely perfect to talk about the issue of sanctuary cities.
Yes, you're right.
Because all levels of law are involved.
You're absolutely right. And also because I was a prosecutor, assistant district attorney in San Francisco, which is one of the premier violators in terms of being a sanctuary city. And for all intents and purposes, they are going to continue to do so. And now you see a lot of people being very vocal, some of the different mayors across this country saying defiant that they will flat out disregard the rule of law in favor of their political ideology.
Help me out on something, because I listen to some of the people for whom I have very low regard on any level who run these cities, in particularly Rahm Emanuel in Chicago. A violent crime wave. Well,
he should be recalled just based on the loss of lives there.
It's saying to people he's going to, preserve Chicago as a sanctuary city, no matter the law, no matter what. And I'm sorry, didn't this administration just use federal supremacy clause law to insist upon getting done whatever it wanted to on this issue? Why should it not apply in the issue of sanctuary cities straight out?
Oh, it should apply. I mean, it is applicable. It should apply. But the problem is you have people putting forward their own ideology and their viewpoints and trying to put forward these sanctuary cities, by the way, at great cost to public safety, to people who are here legally, who are citizens, who deserve a right to be protected and have the rule of law followed. But instead you have these people, these miscreants across the country, going ahead and thumbing their nose at the law. If you're not going to follow the law and the rules of the land, then don't be in the position.
And to be clear, what Donald Trump has said, his administration will be going after criminal illegal immigrants.
Correct.
The estimate is 2 to 3 million of them, and on that basis they make up a considerable portion a violent crime in this country, the MS-13, various gangs.
Absolutely. Yeah, all the gangs that come across and they recruit.
What's it going to take to do it?
You know, it's going to really take a firm hand, and I believe that President-elect Donald Trump will do it because this is something he was very passionate about. He talked about putting forward Kate's Law based on the homicide of Kate Steinle that happened in San Francisco. If the rule of law was followed, Kate Steinle would be alive today, and that's also the law that Bill O'Reilly was pushing so hard as well. I think that Trump will put that in. Yeah, and he can use also executive action to put that forward.
Now, he is about, the president-elect, to reverse a substantial number of the executive actions and orders on the part of President Obama. Is that going to work in most cases with those executive orders? Yes,
I think it will. I think it will work with respect to because President Obama came out about the Dreamers and asking, and people are pushing President Obama to pardon 750,000. That's not going to work because even if he pardons them, it doesn't make them legal or citizens. So that's an issue right there. So some of that can be undone by President-elect Donald Trump. Also about transgender, the bathrooms, that can be undone. And then there's like one other one that maybe I think that he can do pretty quickly. So, I mean, I think you'll see it happen, to be honest.
And very quickly, Mitt Romney coming in to talk with the president-elect. I have just confessed my
what a turnabout.
my petty nature in these things as viciously as Mitt Romney attacked Donald Trump's candidacy.
And he was in a very powerful position to exert some influence on behalf of the Republican Party to bring everybody together. And instead, he went out of his way.
What's his name? Evan?
Yeah, the guy in, what's his name? In McMillan or something in Utah. So that's a problem. So, but you know what? It just goes to show how magnanimous President Donald Trump is going to be. And he's actually reaching across the lines to try to make things work.
In his transition to this point, if I say so myself, I mean, he has been extraordinary. And at the same time, the national left-wing media continue, New York Times, Washington Post, continue their carping and attacks. It's some of the, I thought they were ignorant during the campaign.
Sure.
They've risen to a level of ignorance and abhorrence of the basic precepts of journalism that I never imagined they could reach even 2 weeks ago.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Appalling.
It really is. But you know what? America will be the beneficiary of great decision-making and honest leadership with President-elect Donald Trump.
And we have just learned that General Michael Flynn has been offered the job of National Security Advisor in the Trump White House. Kimberly,
all right,
great to see you. And so it begins.
Yes, so it begins.
Or continues. Thanks so much. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you believe the left-wing national media will give ever Donald Trump due credit for reaching out so graciously, magnanimously?
Howdy, folks. Welcome back. Or welcome aboard if you're just joining us. Sorry you came late to the party, but that's the nice thing about podcasting. You can go back and pick it up. We were talking about sanctuary cities. Actually, we're talking about sanctuary cities. That's all we do on Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show. But we were talking about sanctuary cities in terms of the money and following the money trail. I'm going to give you some facts, and then I'm going to change gears a little bit and give you some things to think about between now and next week's show. And before I forget, you are reminded, please join us for the Doc Owen Show, which is live on Thursday nights at the same time, 8 p.m. Central. We'd be glad to have you. The states that received the most in terms of sanctuary counties, cities, states, et cetera, were California, 132,409,000, and Connecticut at 69 million. Federal grants to cities and counties New York City led the way with 60 million. Chicago followed with 28. Then Philadelphia, etc., right on down. One of the largest ones in the South, or the largest one in the South, is Orleans Parish in Louisiana, which is where New Orleans is at 4.7 million. I really didn't realize that. So if you follow the money trail, you will start to find out why there's opposition out there. Sanctuary college campuses are beginning to spark up. There are college campuses declaring themselves to be sanctuaries and welcoming illegal immigrants in as students to help protect them from the coming scourge, I guess, is what they're worried about. Here's one that really caught my interest. The title of this is Unborn Sanctuary Cities and Prenatal Immigrants. Interesting twist. There is much debate since the presidential election about the status of sanctuary cities across our country. A sanctuary can be defined as a place of refuge and protection. There's a group of vulnerable American citizens who would benefit greatly from sanctuary cities, and these innocent individuals are being targeted and eliminated at a rate of 3,500 each day. A law passed in 1973 has proven to be unfair and prejudiced towards prenatal immigrants. And since the Roe v. Wade court decision, over 58 million defenseless human beings have been terminated and denied entry into the world. These prenatal immigrants are only trying to cross the very short distance from the womb to the world, and all their dreams and hopes for the future are being destroyed by a culture that has legalized the annihilation of the most precious, priceless resource, human life. So they've taken the Democrat approach to why we should allow immigrants into the country. They've used their words and talked about unborn children having the same issues. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had unborn sanctuary cities springing up across our nation that focused on embracing and guarding these hopeless people? The very last thing in our Saint Cities statement is about a sanctuary for the sanctity of life, from conception to death, a natural death. And that's exactly what we talk about. We are going to reach out to these folks and try to get them on the radio, because that's exactly where we're coming from, and they're taking an interesting approach to it. Before we lose you, don't forget Doc Owen Show, Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time. Uncle Bocce is with us. We have a history lesson. We talk about current events, and we just generally kick things around in a good, open atmosphere. You are also reminded, don't forget, we have a northern border.
That's right.
Everything seems to focus on the South. So they can, even if we cut off the South, if we build something in Mexico, sanctuary cities can still attract. Rut-row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.